Welcome back, listeners, to Cosmic Confluence podcast, the space where ancient wisdom meets modern life and we make the woo workable. I'm your host, Sana, and today we are pulling on the invisible threads that shape us, the stories, loyalties, and patterns we inherit from our lineage. Now, healing isn't linear, it is layered, it's messy, it's sacred, and the wildly transformative. And that's exactly why this conversation matters now more than ever. Listeners, my guest is Maria Camila Betancur, a medicine woman, moon dancer, and devoted student of the divine. She beautifully blends family constellations with shamanic practices, sacred sacraments, energy, work, and everyday embodiment to help people remember who they are and come back into right relationship with themselves, their parents, their ancestors, and the living earth. Listeners, in this episode, Maria breaks down family constellations in plain language, the three laws of love, how hidden loyalties drive our choices, and simple ways to start spotting patterns without a full session. We'll also talk about how honoring indigenous lineages with integrity and giving before we take. So, if you have ever felt like the black sheep, if you are carrying more than your share, or if you're ready to step into your true place with clarity and compassion, this one's for you. So, take a breath, let your nervous system soften, and if you want to go deeper, the links will be in the show notes. This is Cosmic Confluence. I'm your host, Sana. So, let's all begin. So, Maria, welcome to the show, and it's really an honor to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. It's great to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Okay. So, Maria, I think this is I think it's a very beautiful topic because I think now it is more than obvious that not only connecting with our ancestral origin or our roots, but connecting with Mother Earth, like trying to know our history, trying to know how we came into existence. I think that is something which is directly connected to our identity. And I think in the modern world, where amongst all this hustle and bustle, when we are kind of unfortunately losing ourselves, it becomes much more relevant, much more needed. So, really, thank you so much, Maria, for what you are doing.
Thank you. Yes, especially now more than ever, we are what feels like a very pivotal point where we are, it's like the bridge between the ancient wisdom and then the new codes that are coming on so that we do it differently, so that we don't repeat the same mistakes. And it is, we're in a time of awakening. And that awakening and remembrance, I feel as though it's through acceptance first and foremost, and that is acceptance of our ancestry, acceptance of our mother, of our father, the ones that gave us life, acceptance of an inclusion of it all, because when we include everything, we are whole.
So let's start the conversation. Understanding family constellations. I may have heard about online, like an audiobook or maybe on social media, but I haven't had the chance to understand it or research about it, Maria. So if you can walk us through what it really is and how it works in uncovering within family dynamic.
So Family Constellations is a system that was developed by Bert Hellinger. He has passed in 2019, but he was a German. He studied a lot of the Carl Jung, a lot of Greek mythology and psychology. He studied with the Zulus, went to different tribes to really understand our psyche, our humanity, and our behavior. And so through these studies, he came up with what today is called systemic family constellations. And so in family constellations, there are 3 laws. We call them the laws of love, and what we look at in a constellation. And this is the first one, everybody belongs, meaning as a family system, we have our father and our mother. That's part of our family tree. And then from them, we have our father's mother and father, and our mother's mother and father, and so on and so forth. And from there come the siblings. Then all the way up, we can go up to, for the sake of this conversation, 7 generations back. And so this is understood to be our family system, our family tree. It is important to understand that every single person in that system is included. This also means miscarriages, abortions, all of those get to be included in this system. What happens when we don't include somebody in our system? Somebody down the line, a couple generations down the line, will come in to bring them, make them be known. There is a movie in Disney that actually shows this, and it's called Encanto. So if anybody has watched that movie, Encanto it takes place in Colombia, and it's about the uncle that has been ostracized from the family, and nobody talks about Bruno. And so that is exactly what Family Constellations, this first law, brings forward, that everybody belongs, including the black sheep of the family, the uncle or the aunt that nobody talks to. It's important to include them. They all belong in the system, no matter what. The second law speaks of the order of things. This is the natural hierarchy, not the one that has been told to us through power and control, but rather the nature of the order. And so we see this, for example, the chickens and the pecking order that they have. It's a system where the ones that have come before go first, and the ones that have come after go follow the first. And so in the order of our family tree, I would be considered the little one to my mother. And then when I become a mother, I would be considered the big one to my child. And then as siblings, there's firstborn, secondborn, thirdborn, and so on and so forth. Every sibling in the order that they're born has a role, a specific role. So when we speak of the natural order of things, it is with the understanding that we fit perfectly in the place we were meant to take up in this world. And when we try to be outside of that place, that's when disharmony becomes alive. That is where we start to have problems, have issues, illnesses, different things. So when we take the rightful place in the world where we belong, everything is harmonized. The third law, and the final one, is the giving and receiving in balance. This is the not taking more than you need or that you can give back, and not giving more than somebody can give back to you, so that you stay in that balance of the reciprocity. Because when we give too much, and there's a part of us that expects something in return, and people can't possibly give us back as much as we give them, then they can often walk away, or resentment can be built because they're not being able to match the amounts that you're giving. So these are some of the examples in the harmony of the giving and receiving in balance. So why is this important? Because whatever our parents didn't finish, we will repeat. And so we call those invisible loyalties. It's blind love. And so we think we don't want to repeat the same mistakes, and so we avoid it. But by doing that, by not taking our rightful place, by avoiding somebody in the family, not including a family secret or a family member, we're actually repeating the same thing that our ancestors did.
Wow. That is very, very, very interesting and fascinating. Very fascinating, Maria. And I think it's because when we talk about family, like most of us immediately would think of the surface level distant closest members. But what you are suggesting that there is an invisible, kind of a web which is influencing our choices and sometimes even our traumas.
That's right. That's right. It's not just through our DNA, but it's also through the epigenetics. It is an invisible field of information that travels down our lineage. And so we may be repeating stories not from 1 or 2 generations ago, but by 4 or 5 generations. Maybe your great 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 grandmother. That is who you have a loyalty towards, and that is the pattern and the trauma that you're repeating. And so through family constellations, we are able to put everything in right relationship and in right order. And so we can constellate anything. Why am I, for example, I have this business and it's not doing well. It's just not thriving. We can constellate that. And oftentimes there's something there that will make it into right relation because, again, we are simply repeating the patterns of our ancestors. And so when we can take a look into the field of what pattern is being repeated and what needs to be put into right relation, then everything is harmonized. So it's a blueprint per se, is how I like to see it. It's like being given the map to successfully live this life in a good way.
As we now understand, more clearly about family constellations, its significance, how, as a, person, if I can ask, how can I start noticing these hidden patterns in my daily life, without maybe doing a full constellation session?
Of course, so you can start to recognize the easiest first one is, what's your relationship to your father and your mother? Because a lot of the times we have a lot of judgment to our parents and how they're supposed to be, and thinking that we can do it differently than they have. And the reality is of course, with the tools we have today, maybe we can do it different. But if we go back to the time in which they did it, the available resources that they had, and their level of consciousness in that moment, could you actually do it differently than they did? And so when we enter this space of judgment towards how they could have done it and how they did it, we begin to put ourselves as the big ones, not the little ones. And that in itself, you're not in right relation. And so with the understanding that I am 50% my father on my right side and 50% my mother on my left side, when I deny my parents, let's say I deny my mother, then I am denying 50% of me. I am denying my feminine energy. I am denying abundance, because the mother is connected to abundance, to health, to wealth. I am denying all these parts of me. And so if somebody is not doing a full constellation, but the person that perhaps is listening to this right now and saying, this is not going right in my life, I invite you to check into your relation with your father and your mother. And I do want to say and make this very clear, this does not mean have a relationship, a physical relationship with somebody that may have been abusive and it is detrimental to you. A lot of this that I'm talking about is from the heart space. How are you in relationship from the heart space to your mother and your father? Not always physically, because I understand that there may be boundaries that get to be established. because while you may do the work, they may not have that work or access to the knowledge to do that work. So a lot of this is done from the heart, feeling them and taking them in your heart.
Thank you for addressing that, Maria, because I think that is also a very crucial factor to consider here. And like it's kind of a very personal question, Maria. Now I have seen like many people, and this is something that I also many times share, that often our decisions, or how do we react to certain kind of events or moments or situations, is largely dependent on what our older generations could have done or could have gone through. So it's kind of what people like call the generational trauma. And somehow, let's say if my father's side, all the ancestors, unfortunately, if they have gone through something, and it's kind of coming through to the younger generations, then kind of becomes like a triggering factor for me to think or make a decision. So in such cases, how does understanding the family constellation help in maybe healing or recovery or in understanding?
Well, through family constellations, we take a look at what particular pattern is being repeated, what is wanting to be looked at. Sometimes, for example, when it is generation after generation, there is a need to recognize both the victim and the victimizer in the lineage. Not just the victim and not just the victimizer or the perpetrator, but rather recognize that there have been both. And so when we can recognize that you have had both the perpetrator and the victim, then you begin to be in right relation and release that. So for example, what I mean by that, if you are one that has been in relationships that have been very traumatic, where you have been the victim, there's probably somewhere down your lineage where there was the perpetrator, and so then one lineage will be one generation will be perpetrated, the next generation would be the victim, the next will be perpetrator, then the next the victim, and so you get to see where you are in that loyalty and how you release it. Oftentimes the victims get to accept the perpetrators in their lineage, and that is how they can be released of this pattern. Now, when we do a constellation, we are opening up the field of information for the person. The person will ask a question, and we will either have, if it's a group constellation, people representing specific family members and ancestors, or we can use it with figurines. So the person will ask a particular question, and then the field of information through the representation of the people or the figurines, which tell me information based on the color, based on the movement, the feel. All of that information is the information that the field brings. With that information, then we know what is needed to harmonize and to heal, which is step 2. We go into the healing words to put things in right order and right relationship. And once we do that, then it takes time for the persons. Typically, we will give them some follow-up work to do. For example, every night before bed, having a meditation where they talk to that one grandfather or the great-great-grandparent, and have some healing words repeated. And so that's allowing the movement to reach beyond this existence, but down the lineage, the DNA. And so the energy starts to move, and the movement starts to be created and deepened. and integrated into the family system.
That sounds actually very, very useful, Um, and like you also like talking about meditation since you brought it. So you have also blended modalities like shamanic practices to Kundalini and IFS. So how does family constellations fit into this broader tapestry of healing?
Yeah, so the many modalities that I hold, I have used first for myself personally. They have been the tools that I have used for my own healing and remembrance, and then have turned into the tools that I use for others. And so, how they weave together is that it's not a one size fits all. Every single person um, is at a different point of their journey. Some people may need to start with some internal family system work or some family constellations work before they get into a psychedelic space where they are receiving an entheogen. Um, Practices like Kundalini, yoga, meditation, sound healing, these can be ongoing practices to support the individual on their day-to-day, their connection with themselves and the divine.
Mm-hmm.
So they all weave in together, not just within the ceremony space, but the ceremony of life. How do we carry this work where it is embodied and it is in right relation?
Oh, yeah. And healing isn't always comfortable. In your experience, like, or maybe through your observations, what have you um seen like the most common resistance people face when they're trying to confront ancestral or familial patterns? Like for the fact I can tell one is because this is something that I've experienced is that if I am kind of, because I'm in the younger generation, probably the third or fourth, and I am doing something very different than what my father or maybe my grandfather and even my father's brother have done. So I'm kind of, I feel like that I'm defying the odds here. And I'm kind of that black sheep, or maybe I have to carry forward that trauma and make sure that, kind of remove that trauma from our generation. It kind of feels like a baggage. So, like, what kind of resistances you have seen?
Well, the when you share your story from a systemic family constellations, we call that bad consciousness. And what Bert Hellinger would say is that when we do the same as our family, we do what we're told and we repeat, we have good conscience. We're good boys and girls. We do what we're told. But a person that has what he would call bad consciousness is the one that says, no, I'm going to do it differently. And this is the beginning of the true healing. It is the beginning of getting out of the field of pain to be able to truly heal. Now, where the stubbornness or the hesitancy or the resistance can come in is once you leave the field of pain, it doesn't mean to completely avoid it and not address it. It means as you have left the field of pain, now you get to take a look at it. So most people will have a resistance to recognizing and taking their parents, mother and father, without judgment, taking them fully into their heart. We can say that, oh yeah, they did what they could with what they had, but are you really willing to accept? Because as children, we are the little ones, we are not the big ones. And so as the little ones, we go to them. We ask for forgiveness. We don't forgive them, we accept them. And so that's where I most see the resistance to that. And that typically can come from the space of when they have taken the role of the big one to their parents.
Well, that really makes sense. Um, you know, please, I mean, pardon if I'm pronouncing them wrongly, but your work is deeply rooted in ancestral knowledge, from the Shipibo Kunibo tribe to the Comcac tribe. Once again, pardon for if I'm pronouncing it wrongly. How do you honor these traditions while making them accessible for someone who is unfamiliar with sacred practices?
Yes, thank you for that question. I work with the many tribes, the Shipibos, the Comcac, the Native American. I work with them in different ways, and so in the case of the Shipibos, for example, they have given me the blessing. My Shipibo family, Maestro Francisco, adopted me and showed me the ways and gave me the blessing to serve the entheogen of ayahuasca here in the States. And so what happens a lot of the times is when people are given these blessings, they forget about where they came from. And so what is very important to me is I always give before I take. And making sure that as these antigens reach other parts of the world, that a portion of that is still being able to go back to them to sustain the wisdom that they carry. Because, as I like to say, before spirituality became a bumper sticker and everybody learned about these antigens and these different ways of living, they were seen as the trash, as the stuff that they're just there to the side. I mean, here in America, we know that the Native Americans were taken, their lands were taken, everything was taken, and so all of a sudden we're in an age where spirituality is a bumper sticker, and now it's the in thing, and everybody wants to know about the elders and the wisdom keepers. But before that was the case, they were silently keeping the wisdom and the planet continuing to operate through their prayer without us seeing it and without needing the acceptance or the recognition. They were doing it because that's the prayer, because they know. And so now it is up to us to be able to support them now that we are aware and know about them, to support them to continue their wisdom. And so in the way I do that personally, I continue to bring groups of people once a year back to the jungle of Peru, the Amazonian jungle, or to the Comcac tribe in Mexico, or to the different places where I have my elders and my teachers, and I bring them there so that they can learn the wisdom and the knowledge and see where it comes from. And in this way, we are supporting them by being able to give them resources to continue to support themselves, their health, their well-being. And I believe that knowledge is education and education is choice. And so the more people can actually go to these places and see their circumstances in the way that they are living, the more awareness we can bring into the world, because then those people come back and share their story, and then that brings more people desiring to visit or desiring to contribute financially or to donate some toys for the children or clothes and things of that sort. And so that is in the way that I continue to give back. We work with multiple non-for-profits. We work with multiple tribes. And every year we bring groups of people. Every year we support monthly with financial contribution, with donations, whatever they need. We help them. For example, with the Comcac, a few years ago, they didn't have license plates or IDs. And so I raised some money to be able to purchase the printer that would be able to do this. And we were able to purchase the printer and send it to them so that they could have some proper identification of all of the people that live in the tribe. So these are the ways in which we help.
That's really, really inspiring, Maria. Really inspiring. And one thing which, I think it's super, super important is number one, before taking, you have to give. I think that is something, it's kind of, I'm personally seeing that it's kind of missing. Because we are taking it from our mother nature, but then what exactly we are giving back? So I think that really, really raises a very important question here. And secondly, I think when it comes to these ancient traditions, tribes, communities, one thing that I've observed is very much connected, deeply connected with Mother Earth. In fact, in our country, in our culture also, there are communities and tribes who are very, very much connected, sacred. And I personally feel that, we must really honor the origins, the sanctity, the sacredness, the connection that, they have with nature. No, thank you so much for addressing that.
Yes, thank you.
So, Maya, before we wrap up, if listeners, they would like to connect with you, and they would also like to explore further on family constellation, and also they would also like to understand what kind of rituals or resources you are providing, what would be the best medium?
They can go to thehivehealing.com. That is the best place to find more information about what I do, what we do, and to have contact information to reach out to me, or follow our Instagram page, The Hive Healing, at The Hive Entheogenic, actually, and my own is at I am Maria Camila _. Those are the places that I can be reached.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, listeners, I encourage all of you to connect with Maria and explore more about family constellations. Because it really, really helps us to understand our origin, our history, and how it can help us in bringing back that inner compass, that inner guidance that we need. So refer to the show notes along with this episode. And before we wrap up, Maria, I must really, really thank you for walking us through this intricate tapestry of ancestral healing, and helping us getting back to ourselves.
Thank you very much. Thank you for providing a space for voices to be had in regards to this.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. And to all the listeners, thank you so much for devoting your time to tuning into this episode. And all I can say is healing is possible, and reclaiming your inner power is not only your right, it is your birthright. So thank you for joining us on this journey. Keep listening to Cosmic Confluence. Till then, I'm your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.